Invisible Shores, Olivia Blackwood stood motionless in the center of her pristine white kitchen, a cup of untouched coffee growing cold between her palms. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the polished marble countertops and custom cabinetry that had been featured in 3 separate design magazines. Everything in the sprawling Seattle mansion was camera-ready, meticulously maintained by a staff that moved like shadows through the house, including her. At 34, Olivia had perfected the art of being decorative yet undemanding. Her chestnut hair was cut in an elegant shoulder-length style that required minimal maintenance. Her wardrobe consisted of expensive, tasteful pieces in neutral colors, nothing bold enough to draw attention or criticism. She had become exactly what was expected of Daniel Blackwood's wife, a flawless background element in the life of one of Seattle's most celebrated tech entrepreneurs. The sound of hurried footsteps broke the kitchen's silence. Daniel appeared, already dressed in one of his impeccably tailored charcoal suits, his dark hair precisely styled, his attention fixed on the smartphone in his hand. "Morning," he said without looking up, his fingers never pausing their rapid movement across the screen. Peterson moved the investor call to 9. "I'll need to head out early." Olivia nodded, though she knew he wouldn't notice. "There's coffee," she offered, gesturing to the carafe. Daniel grabbed a travel mug, filling it quickly. "Thanks, don't wait up tonight. The Singapore team wants to review the security protocols, so I'll be late." "Just like every other night this month," Olivia thought but didn't say. He was halfway to the door when he stopped abruptly and turned as if remembering something. "The Dominican Republic trip next week, I need you to come." The statement caught her completely off guard. In the 3 years since Daniel's company, Blackwood Security Systems, had expanded internationally, he had never once suggested she accompany him on business travel. "You want me to come with you?" she asked, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. Daniel finally looked up from his phone, his expression distracted but determined. "These investors are old school. Family values, tradition, all that. They respond better to married executives." His tone was matter-of-fact, analytical. "Harrison's bringing his wife too, of course. She wasn't being invited as his partner, but as a prop. Another accessory to help close the deal." "When do we leave?" she asked, keeping her voice neutral. "Monday morning. Teresa will email you the details." He glanced at his watch. "I've got to go. We'll talk later." The front door closed with a soft, expensive click, and Olivia was alone again in the perfect kitchen that had never seen a real family meal. She poured her cold coffee down the drain, watching the dark liquid swirl away. 7 years of marriage, and this was what remained. Practical arrangements and logistical exchanges. The passionate young artist Daniel had fallen for in graduate school had long since disappeared, replaced by this polished, hollow version of herself. When had it happened? The transformation had been so gradual she'd barely noticed. First, she'd set aside her painting to support his fledgling company. Then came the subtle suggestions about her appearance, her behavior, always framed as helpful advice for navigating his professional world. Before she knew it, she'd become what he needed. Quiet, accommodating, ornamental. Olivia wandered through the silent house to her small studio in the East Wing, the only space truly her own. Once intended as her artistic sanctuary, it had gradually become another unused room. Her canvases gathering dust, her paints drying in their tubes. On the wall hung a single-framed photograph, Daniel and herself on their honeymoon in Greece. His arm was around her waist, both of them laughing as waves crashed behind them. She wore a bright yellow sundress, her hair wild from the ocean breeze, her smile uninhibited. Daniel's eyes were fixed on her face with an intensity that had once made her feel like the center of his universe. When was the last time he had really looked at her that way? Not through her or past her to the next meeting, the next milestone, the next acquisition, but truly at her, as if she mattered more than all the success he'd accumulated. Olivia touched the photograph gently, tracing the outline of their younger, more hopeful selves. Something stirred inside her, not quite anger, not quite sadness, but a quiet determination she hadn't felt in years. If she was going to the Dominican Republic, she wouldn't go as Daniel's convenient corporate wife. This trip would be different. Somehow. The week passed in a flurry of practical preparations. Olivia reviewed her wardrobe with a critical eye, suddenly aware of how each piece had been selected to fade into the background. Conservative dresses in beige and navy. Sensible shoes. Minimal jewelry that wouldn't draw attention. When had she become so afraid of being noticed? On impulse, she drove to a boutique downtown that she'd passed many times but never entered. The shop windows displayed vibrant colors and bold patterns that would have once appealed to her artistic sensibilities. Inside, a saleswoman with short silver hair and striking red-framed glasses approached. "Can I help you find something?" "I'm going to the Caribbean," Olivia explained, feeling strangely vulnerable. "I need something different." The woman, Judith according to her name tag, studied Olivia thoughtfully. "Different from what?" "From this." Olivia gestured to her cream-colored cashmere sweater and tailored slacks. "From disappearing." Understanding dawned in Judith's eyes. Without another word, she led Olivia through the store, pulling items in jewel tones and unexpected cuts. At the back of the boutique, she paused before a display of swimwear. "Every woman needs one piece that makes her feel powerful," Judith said, selecting a one-piece swimsuit in deep crimson. "This would be stunning with your coloring." Olivia stared at the garment, its bold color both terrifying and exhilarating. The last time she'd worn anything so vibrant was before she became Mrs. Daniel Blackwood. "I don't know if I can," she whispered, more to herself than to Judith. "You already are," Judith replied simply. "The question is whether you'll continue." In the dressing room, Olivia slipped into the red swimsuit, avoiding the mirror until she had adjusted the straps and smoothed the material over her hips. When she finally looked up, her breath caught. The woman reflected back at her was a stranger, or rather someone she had forgotten existed. The crimson fabric contrasted dramatically with her pale skin, making her appear luminous rather than washed out. The cut was elegant but confident, revealing curves she had been carefully concealing under shapeless designer clothing. But it was her expression that truly startled her. For the first time in years, she looked fully present, fully alive. Olivia left the boutique with the red swimsuit and several other pieces carefully wrapped in tissue paper, hidden at the bottom of her shopping bag like contraband. That evening, she concealed them at the back of her closet, behind the acceptable, forgettable clothing that Daniel's executive assistant had once tactfully suggested was more appropriate for someone in her position. Monday arrived with gray Seattle rain pounding against the windows. Daniel was already on a call when the car service arrived to take them to the airport, his attention firmly fixed on the quarterly projections being discussed. Olivia sat beside him in silence, watching raindrops chase each other down the window, feeling like they were already worlds apart, though only inches separated them. The first-class cabin was half empty, the flight attendants discreet and efficient. Daniel worked throughout the takeoff, his laptop open the moment the captain turned off the seatbelt sign. Olivia gazed out the window as they broke through the cloud cover, the sun suddenly brilliant above the gray blanket that covered Seattle. Something about that image, darkness below, light above, stirred her. She had been living under a heavy layer of expectations for so long, she'd forgotten there was brightness waiting above it. "Daniel," she said impulsively, "what would you think if I started painting again?" He glanced up, his expression momentarily blank as if processing an unexpected data point. "Painting? I thought you'd lost interest in that." Had she said that? Olivia couldn't remember. More likely, she had stopped mentioning it when it became clear that Daniel considered her artistic pursuits a charming but impractical hobby. "I've been thinking about it recently," she replied carefully. "The house has that perfect light in the East studio." Daniel's attention was already drifting back to his screen. "Whatever makes you happy. Just make sure it doesn't interfere with any of the foundation events this quarter. The Children's Hospital Gala is particularly important. Whatever makes you happy." The words should have been encouraging, but they fell hollow. Daniel didn't actually care what made her happy. He hadn't asked about her happiness in years. He only cared that her activities didn't disrupt his carefully orchestrated life. Olivia turned back to the window, a new resolve hardening within her. The Dominican Republic trip had initially seemed like one more obligation, one more performance as Daniel Blackwood's perfect wife. Now she saw it differently. This journey wasn't just a business trip. It was an opportunity, perhaps her last, to discover if anything remained of their marriage beneath the polished exterior they presented to the world. And more importantly, to discover if anything remained of the woman she had once been, the woman in the yellow dress, whose laughter had once captivated the driven young man Daniel used to be. As the plane carried them south toward warmer waters, Olivia made a silent promise to herself. She would not return to Seattle unchanged. Whether that meant finding a way back to Daniel or finding the strength to walk away, something had to shift. She could no longer exist as a ghost in her own life, an invisible presence in rooms full of people who looked past her. The red swimsuit nestled in her suitcase was more than just a garment. It was a declaration of intent, a first step toward becoming visible again. For the first time in years, Olivia Blackwood was ready to be seen. Rising currents, the Dominican Republic welcomed them with a symphony of color and warmth that made Seattle's gray palette seem like a distant dream. Their resort, perched on a pristine stretch of white sand beach, was a paradise of tropical splendor. "You'll be comfortable here while I'm in meetings," Daniel said, as they entered their oceanfront suite. "The welcome dinner with investors is at 7. Wear the navy dress with the pearl necklace. It conveys the right image. The right image. Always the right image." "Of course," Olivia replied, her gaze drawn to the endless blue horizon beyond their balcony. Daniel was gone before she'd unpacked, whisked away to preliminary meetings. Alone in the suite, Olivia stepped onto the balcony, letting the Caribbean breeze caress her face. The beach below teemed with life. Couples strolling hand in hand, families building sandcastles, resort staff arranging colorful loungers under palm-thatched umbrellas. Freedom beckoned. Without overthinking, Olivia changed into a simple sundress and ventured down to explore the resort. The property was magnificent, with winding paths through lush gardens and infinity pools that seemed to merge with the ocean beyond. For the first time in years, Olivia moved without a schedule or purpose, simply experiencing her surroundings with an artist's appreciation. Near the beach bar, she noticed a woman with a professional camera photographing the resort. The photographer, dark hair pulled into a casual bun, moved with confident grace as she captured the scene. "The light here is incredible, isn't it?" Olivia found herself saying as she approached. The woman lowered her camera, revealing a warm smile. "It's why I never left. I came for a week's vacation 6 years ago and found I couldn't return to New York's shadows." "I'm Olivia," she offered, surprised by her own forwardness. "Mariana," the photographer replied. "Resort photographer, unofficial island historian, and expert on which beach bar makes the best piña colada." Their conversation flowed naturally as Mariana continued her work, occasionally stopping to explain her approach to capturing light and movement. When she learned Olivia had once been an artist, she insisted on showing her the resort's gallery where local artists displayed their work. "You should create while you're here," Mariana suggested. "The island has a way of awakening what's dormant inside us." That evening at the investor dinner, Olivia performed her role perfectly, charming, attentive, unremarkable. Daniel introduced her proudly to the conservative investors, his hand possessively at her waist, yet his eyes never truly meeting hers. The following days fell into a pattern. Daniel attended meetings while Olivia explored the resort, often joining Mariana on her photography rounds. Through Mariana's lens, Olivia began seeing herself differently, not as Daniel Blackwood's appropriate wife, but as a woman with her own light. "May I photograph you?" Mariana asked on their third day, as they walked along a secluded stretch of beach. "There's something awakening in you. I'd like to capture it." Hesitantly, Olivia agreed. The resulting images, which Mariana showed her on the camera display, were revelatory. A woman emerging from invisibility, beautiful in her authenticity rather than her perfection. That night, after another business dinner where she'd been present but unseen, Olivia made her decision. The next morning, while Daniel attended his most important meeting, she would reclaim herself. The following day dawned gloriously bright. Olivia waited until Daniel had left before removing the red swimsuit from its hiding place. Her heart raced as she changed, covering it with a sheer white beach wrap that did little to disguise the vibrant color beneath. The beach was busy when she arrived, but Olivia barely noticed the other guests. She found an empty lounger, removed her wrap, and walked toward the watch. She didn't see Daniel's arrival at the beach. Didn't see him freeze mid-conversation with his business associates as he spotted her wading into the azure water, the red swimsuit a stunning contrast against the blue backdrop. Didn't notice his expression transform, from shock to recognition to something more primal as he observed other men's appreciative glances toward his wife. It wasn't until she emerged from the water that she saw him, standing at the edge of the beach, his business meeting apparently forgotten, his eyes fixed on her with an intensity she hadn't felt in years. "Olivia?" His voice carried confusion and something else, awareness, as if truly seeing her for the first time in years. She approached slowly, water droplets glistening on her skin. "Daniel, I thought you had meetings all day." "I did." His gaze traveled over her, lingering on curves he'd long ignored. "What is this?" "This is me," she replied simply. "The woman you married. The woman you've forgotten. Shores reunited." "We need to talk," Daniel said, his voice low as he guided her away from curious onlookers. In their suite, tension crackled between them as Olivia wrapped herself in a robe, suddenly feeling vulnerable under his intense scrutiny. "Where did this come from?" he demanded, gesturing vaguely at her transformation. "It was always there," she answered quietly. "You just stopped looking." The truth hung between them, impossible to ignore in the intimate confines of their suite. "I've never stopped," Daniel began, but faltered under her steady gaze. "It's complicated." "No, it's actually quite simple," Olivia countered. "You built an empire and left me behind. I became what you needed, quiet, appropriate, invisible. But I can't do it anymore, Daniel. I won't disappear completely." Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, perhaps, or remorse. "I've been so focused on proving myself," he admitted, pacing the room. "After growing up with nothing, I needed to show everyone, my parents, those investors who initially rejected me, that I could build something significant." "And you have," Olivia acknowledged. "But at what cost?" The question hung between them, unanswerable in its simplicity. Daniel surprised her by canceling his remaining meetings. "I need time with my wife," he told his confused assistant over the phone. The next 3 days became a rediscovery. They walked barefoot along the beach at sunrise, snorkeled in crystal clear waters teeming with tropical fish, shared meals without phones or interruptions. Physical intimacy returned naturally, urgent and tender in ways it hadn't been in years, yet Olivia maintained a careful emotional distance, unwilling to mistake passion for lasting change. "This feels like our honeymoon," Daniel murmured one evening as they watched the sunset from their balcony. "Because you're present," Olivia replied. "But Daniel, I need to know if this is real or just another Caribbean fantasy we'll leave behind in Seattle." His expression sobered. "I want it to be real. I didn't realize how much I was losing until I saw you on that beach. Not just beautiful, but alive in a way you haven't been at home." "Because I'm not allowed to be that person in your world," she said. "Your perfect wife can't be unpredictable or vibrant or real." Daniel took her hand, his touch uncharacteristically uncertain. "I don't want to lose you, Olivia. Tell me how to fix this." The question was so sincere it nearly broke her resolve. "It's not about fixing one thing. It's about building something different together. I need partnership, not ownership. Presence, not just provision. I need you to see me, not just when other men are looking, but every day." Before returning to Seattle, they crafted a new agreement for their marriage, concrete changes rather than vague promises. Date nights without phones, space for Olivia to reclaim her art, joint decisions about social engagements, regular unplugged weekends at their lake house. The transition wasn't seamless. Back home, Daniel struggled against the gravitational pull of old patterns. Meetings ran long. Emergency calls interrupted dinners. The familiar distance threatened to return, but something had fundamentally shifted. When Daniel began retreating into work, Olivia no longer silently accepted his absence. She wore bright colors that caught his eye across rooms, rearranged their home to reflect her artistic sensibilities, reclaimed her voice in decisions that affected them both. "This investor dinner conflicts with the gallery opening I told you about," she said firmly one evening, referring to a local exhibit where her work would be displayed for the first time in years. Daniel's instinct was clearly to prioritize business. Instead, he paused, visibly remembering their Dominican Republic conversations. "The gallery is more important. I'll have Teresa reschedule." 6 months after their Caribbean journey, Olivia's transformation had catalyzed change beyond their marriage. Daniel began restructuring his company to allow more personal time, his leadership style feeling both terrified and exhilarated. New Horizons 1 year later. Olivia stood in her gallery downtown surrounded by her paintings, vibrant seascapes and portraits inspired by their Caribbean awakening. The exhibition, her first major showing, had drawn impressive crowds and reviews. Daniel arrived late, coming directly from the airport. "I'm sorry," he said, finding her amidst admirers. "The Tokyo meeting ran over." Once this would have been the beginning of retreat and resentment. Now Olivia simply squeezed his hand. "You're here now. That's what matters." Their marriage wasn't perfect, no relationship surviving near collapse ever could be. There were still difficult days, negotiations, and compromises. Daniel occasionally slipped back into workaholism. Olivia sometimes tested boundaries too far or too fast. But the foundation had been rebuilt, stronger for having been broken and deliberately repaired. They had learned that love wasn't just about grand passion or practical partnership, but daily choices to see each other clearly and value what they saw. Mariana's photographs from the Dominican Republic hung in their bedroom, tangible reminders of Olivia's awakening and Daniel's recognition. The images captured not just a woman in a red swimsuit, but the moment invisibility gave way to vibrant presence. Their annual return to the Caribbean became a tradition, a week to reconnect and recommit to the changes they'd made. Daniel left his phone in the hotel safe. Olivia brought her sketchbooks rather than careful facades. On their third such trip, they renewed their vows on the same beach where everything had shifted, the ceremony intimate and authentic in ways their lavish first wedding hadn't been. "I see you," Daniel promised, the words carrying the weight of their journey. "And I remain visible," Olivia replied, squeezing his hands. Later, as they walked along the shore at sunset, Olivia reflected on how close they'd come to losing each other, not through dramatic betrayal, but the quieter tragedy of mutual invisibility. It had taken a red swimsuit and Caribbean clarity to awaken them both from the comfortable illusion of connection without true presence. The tide was coming in, waves erasing their footprints behind them. Ahead, the shore stretched unmarked, ready for new paths to be traced across its welcoming surface, just like their future together.